Emotional mastery has become a luxury. In a world that is designed to keep you on urgency, in scarcity, and always reacting to the next thing that's happening to you, having the time and the space to regulate your nervous system, to regulate your emotions, has become a luxury and, quite frankly, a necessity that most people are missing. But if you want to lead, if you want to run your business effectively, if you want to feel more confident in who you are and how you are operating on a day-to-day basis, then it's time that you take your emotional mastery back under control. So in today's video, I'm going to unpack what emotional mastery is, quick practices for you to develop it in the moment, and techniques that you can implement to help you develop emotional mastery on a day-to-day basis, and not just leave it as some technique or as some skill that just elite executives have. I'm Dr. Christina Ady. I'm a social psychologist, and here I help you understand the psychology of leadership and confident communication so you can apply it for yourself. Let's get into things. Welcome to The Self-Led Leader, a podcast for high performers who want to lead from alignment, not expectation. I'm Dr. Christina Ady, a social psychologist, and I'm here to help you lead with clarity, not chaos. This show is about what happens before the strategy, your mindset, your nervous system, the inner leadership that shapes everything you say and do. Because presence isn't about being loud, it's about being aligned. Let's get right into it. Here's the thing. The way that society is currently designed, it keeps us in a reactive loop. A loop that most of us don't actually want to be in. You see, most people wake up, pick up their phone, start scrolling, and start consuming. They get to work, something's already going on, they're reacting to things landing on their desk time after time after time. There is a constant input, and cognitively, we are at an overload. There is too much information being thrown at us at all times. There is too much for us to consume and too much for us to do. It is not physically possible. It is not mentally possible, and we don't have the cognitive capacity to process it all. That's just the way it is. Then you need to add in your nervous system. Your nervous system is not designed to be living in a constant state of stress, in constant states of evaluating the risks, consuming information, reacting to things that are going on in your life and that other people are doing, whether that's at work, online, in your business. So when you have such a large amount of input coming in, your nervous system spikes and causes a stress response. From there, you get into a reactive state and you make decisions based on how you feel emotionally in the moment, rather than how you would prefer to act if you took the time to think things through. And this often leads to a state of regret, a state of shame, a state of self-judgment, and then rinse and repeat all over again. We end up having our mood be determined by our phones, our inboxes, our teams, the things that come across our desks. Everyone else seems to have a say in how we feel except for us, because we are living in a state of reactivity. That's not being a leader. That's not embodying self-leadership. That's being led by others and the things others want you to consume. And so developing emotional mastery is not about just being chill or zen. It's not about consuming less. Emotional mastery is developing the skill of having intentional choices of how to react. So rather than being a hothead, rather than blowing up, rather than doing the first thing that comes to mind, emotional mastery is understanding yourself, understanding your triggers, and understanding how to make decisions under pressure. You see, emotional intelligence and emotional mastery, it's not just a trait that some people have. It's not just a skill among the top executives in the world. It's a skill that is trainable, which means that it's a skill that you can learn. If you can learn to pause before you make a decision, if you can learn to give yourself a pause for a moment to think, then you can lead others. Otherwise, if you're incapable of pausing to think things through, then you're just being led by the emotional states of others. So, anytime you feel activated, anytime you feel reactive, anytime you feel like you need that moment to think, use my CALM technique. CALM. Starting with C, check your state. Evaluate how you're feeling. Name the emotion that you're experiencing. You see, when you first learn this technique, it might feel a little silly to tell yourself, I feel angry, I feel stressed, I feel overwhelmed. But naming the emotion actually separates you from it, lets you look at it objectively, and lets you put some distance between what you're actually feeling. So rather than reacting and feeling what you're already feeling and it snowballing from there, you get to pause, understand the emotional state of your nervous system, and then adapt accordingly. Next is A, anchor your body. Your nervous system is such an important aspect of your emotional intelligence. It's hard to be emotionally intelligent if you are just letting your emotions get the best of you. If every time you're angry, you blow up. If every time you're sad, you give up on your work for the rest of the day. Your emotions do not get to control your outcomes. You get to control your emotions once you learn how to do so effectively. And so your nervous system, when it's regulated, helps you do that effectively. It helps you understand when you're triggered, when you're stressed, when you're having a response you don't want to have. And if you can get your nervous system under control, you get to calm down and think things through more clearly. And so to get your nervous system in control, you need to first understand the state that you're in, which comes from also naming the emotion you're feeling. And then you need to have tools in your pocket for how to regulate your nervous system. Deep breathing can work very well, but so can a body check-in. Now, a body check-in is simply checking in with how each part of your body is feeling. Now, you probably relate to this. When you're stressed, when you're tense, where do you carry that tension? Do you clench your jaw? Do you start to play with your hands or make a fist? Do you tighten your shoulders and then develop back pain from the tension you're carrying? Understand where the stress and the tension is in your body and adjust accordingly. So if you name your emotion and understand you're feeling angry, then you get to check in with your body and see where you're physically holding on to that anger in the moment. If that is your jaw, you get to consciously unclench it and relax. That already sends a signal to your mind and your nervous system that you're calming down and you're in control of the situation. Next is the L, lead your mind. Give your mind a specific direction and destination to focus on. So rather than spiraling, rather than considering how you're feeling and what's going on, rather than reacting to what someone else is saying or doing, lead your mind with a clear direction. What outcome matters most to you right now? What is the desired outcome that you're aiming for? And what is the direction that you want to focus on? Move intentionally by your choice, not by your emotional reactions. Put on your blinders and don't get distracted by everything else because you're in an emotionally reactive state in that moment. So, since you understand that emotional mastery is becoming a luxury, you understand that there's time scarcity. There's a perceived time scarcity that all of us are living by. Everything in our lives has been designed to hijack our dopamine system. Everyone is designing their life, their business, and their outcomes around ways to hijack our dopamine systems for success. And instead, it's creating a state of constant reactivity, constant urgency. We are starting to confuse speed with success. But the best performers, the most emotionally intelligent individuals, they understand that success comes from being responsive and regulated. So here are 3 different ways, 3 different luxurious techniques you can add to your daily schedule to begin to develop the skill and the practice of emotional mastery. These are each easy to do, and you can implement them into your daily schedule or even on a weekly basis, and you can get them done in under 10 minutes at a time. But the payoff of this is massive. If you can start to nurture the skill of emotional intelligence and work on your emotional mastery, the ripple effects of that are tremendous. It won't just end with how you feel. The way that you show up, the way that you lead yourself, dictates the way that you communicate with others. It completely changes the dynamic and the nature of the relationships that you're having. It changes the way that you're being perceived by other people. And if you're a hothead, if you're reacting, if you're stressed, if you're chaotic, if you're constantly running behind, and all of a sudden you change the impression that you're making, that has massive implications for your reputation and your business, as well as your relationships, your personal relationships, your family, everything. It all starts with you at the core and your capacity to hold space for your own emotions before you hold space for the emotions of others. So let's get into the 3 techniques and the 3 luxurious practices you're going to add to your schedule. Number 1, you're going to add in a margin of space for time and emotional processing. So that might look like 5 to 10 minutes to start, where you are intentionally choosing to sit with your own thoughts. So rather than waking up and picking up your phone and scrolling, rather than hopping from meeting to meeting to meeting, rather than ending one task and immediately moving on to the next, or rather than filling up your time with scrolling because it's helping you relax, you are going to add in a margin of time to sit, to think, and to process. Now, the cherry on top is if you can add in an anchor word for yourself. Now, this might be calm, this might be steady, this might be intentional, whatever word resonates with you. You're going to add in that anchor word, process it, add it into your margin of time, and then throughout the day, when you find yourself losing track, when you find yourself becoming reactive, when you find yourself getting stressed out, you're going to go back to that anchor word and you're going to use it as the blinders to focus. So if you're in a conversation with a colleague and you find yourself getting frustrated about how it's going, you go back to your anchor word of calm to ground you. Maybe you go back to your anchor word of intentional to help you focus on the outcome that you're aiming for and not the situation at hand. Okay? 5 to 10 minutes to start is all it takes for this technique. Now, the second luxurious task that you're going to add is monotask windows. This is very similar to deep work, where you are going to focus on one task at a time. You see, with cognitive load, with multitasking, research shows that we are not nearly as effective as we think we are when we're multitasking. Matter of fact, research studies have shown that we actually overestimate how productive we think we're being in comparison to how productive we actually are when we're multitasking. By now, most people are extremely familiar with multitasking and having constant stimulation, whether that's colleagues in the office, the TV on, the radio on, multiple windows, listening to something. Yes, there are individuals who feel like they work better with something like white noise, but let's be real. If you think you can work on 2 different projects simultaneously, you are tricking yourself into thinking you're being productive, and you're actually being less productive than you could be if you were to zone in on one task at a time. Now, one way to make this technique work even better is to create something called an edge. This is a criteria of sorts, like a boundary that you put on your tasks. That might look like a timer. That might be like a work criteria of this many words written or this much of the task complete. And this lets you put an endpoint, a very clear endpoint on when you can comfortably end the task. And that works well to regulate your nervous system, to give your mind control over the task, and to help you emotionally feel in control of the task at hand. If you sit down to work on a project with an ambiguous start and end date, maybe if you're like me, I'm currently writing a book, and I've set myself a challenge to write a book in 30 days. And if I just sit down with an ambiguous task of I need to write today, it's extremely hard and extremely demotivating. I don't know what the criteria is to gauge whether I've been successful or not. Is it just the fact that I wrote something? Is it the fact that I sat down? Is it the fact that I wrote 1,000 words, 2,000 words, 5,000 words? What's the benchmark? So even if I was to remove all other distractions and just work on my book, without a clear boundary or a clear edge for myself, it becomes less productive. And instead, having that container for myself and knowing what my expectations are helps me feel emotionally in control and emotionally rewarded when I meet that criteria. Now, the third luxurious technique you're going to include into your schedule is a 5-minute buffer to decompress. And 5 minutes is a great place to start, and you might want to up this the more comfortable that you get and the more that you see that it works. Maybe you have a 5-minute buffer in between meetings and like a 30-minute buffer at the end of the day. But a time to decompress is extremely important because your mind is always going, especially your subconscious mind. It never turns off. And so when you are working all day long, when you're constantly in a state of reactivity, when you have information and tasks being thrown at you left and right from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep, that is a lot for your mind to process. Your cognitive load will be at max capacity. And so to mitigate that, you want to be intentional about including moments of decompression. And by decompression, I don't just mean relaxing in front of the TV. I mean intentionally putting all stimulation away, taking the time to decompress your body. So that might look like meditation, yoga, mind-body awareness, and just relaxing your body bit by bit. That might look like journaling, processing how your day went, processing the ups and downs. That might look like just sitting for 5 minutes alone with your thoughts, with your eyes closed, in a low stimulation environment. Maybe you want to get a weighted blanket. Maybe you want to get an eye mask. Something to allow you to decompress and remove all stimulation so that your mind can finish processing all the tasks at hand, re-regulate, and move on to the next task. You see, back when I was in graduate school, I often worked with students who were getting ready for exams and who were studying and who thought that their study habits were amazing because they would time block everything and they would study for one exam for 2 hours and then they would jump to the next studying session and they felt productive. But the thing is, your mind, again, it has a capacity for how much information you can process. And more so, it has a lag time. And so when you are working on something, when you are doing something cognitively, your brain does not stop processing the moment that you finish the task. It keeps thinking, sort of like a computer indexing information. And so when you add in a buffer time to decompress, to sit alone with your thoughts, and to not distract yourself with something like scrolling, you are actually giving your mind the time that it needs to finish processing, to finish thinking, and to close that tab, if you will, before moving on. And so this is an extremely important and very simple technique that will work wonders for helping you develop emotional mastery. Because with each of these techniques, you are teaching your mind and your nervous system to start, to focus, and to have a clear endpoint. And that is how you stop living in reactive autopilot and start being intentional. So yes, emotional mastery has become a luxury. Not everyone has it. Not everyone is willing to work on it, but it matters. And the implications of it are tremendous in your life, in your business, and honestly, in your own mental health. So if you've ever thought about how important having emotional intelligence is, stop leaving it for the top executives and the top business people and the elite 1% that we look up to. Start developing it for yourself. It does not have to be complicated, but you do have to be intentional with it. Your nervous system is not a group project. No one else needs to contribute to it. So be intentional with the information that you're consuming and the amount of things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Your cognitive load has a capacity. Understand what the limits of your capacity are and start to adapt and work from there. You don't want to just work on being calmer. You want to work on being more in command and in control of the emotions that you're experiencing. That will come through the 3 techniques that we talked about today. Remember, if you can pause, you can lead, even if it's just leading yourself. If you can't pause, you're being led by others and the information they're throwing your way. Be intentional with your emotions and start treating emotional mastery like the luxury that it has become. If you like this video, comment down below with what your biggest takeaway is and which of the 3 techniques you're going to try first. If this is something that resonates, if this is something that you know you want more support and guidance with, maybe you need some accountability to make sure you're actually putting in the time to work on this, then I invite you to check out Club Coherence. Club Coherence is a community that I've built designed specifically for leaders, coaches, and founders who know they want some support and accountability with their mindset and their communication skills. So whether you're looking to develop your executive presence, whether you want some tweaks to how you're leading your client meetings, Club Coherence is the place for you to actually work on your mindset and your communication skills in a way that makes them feel naturally confident and authentic to you. The link will be in the description box and I invite you to check it out, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.